What's up, friends of YouTube? Derek Van Diest here with Zaandam Music. In today's episode, I'm going to be making a beat with the Arturia 6 collection, and I'm also going to be using Arturia Spark for the drums. So let's get right into it. Alright, so here I have some of the instruments from the collection loaded up, and I'm going to start by showing each one. So for the bass, I'm going to be using the Mini V3. And this is a neat little instrument because I like to use it for bass sounds. It has some really nice Moog style bass. You have some brass, keys, lead, organ, pad. So you can essentially make a whole beat just using this one keyboard here. So we'll get into that later. The next one is Spark, and I'm going to be using this for my drums. So when I made the switch from FL Studio to Studio One, the only thing I was really missing was the step sequencer. The step sequencer and gross beat. But for the step sequencer, I found this one here, Arturia Spark. And it has a section where I can just put in the samples, whatever samples I want. And it's in library, so I can find my library samples, put them in individually into all the pads. And then I can sequence them here just like in FL Studio. So it's a nice little alternative, and straight from there I can export it as a wave, or I can just bring the MIDI in. So I'm going to get into that later on. For the next instrument, we're going to be using a piano, just a standard, looks like a grand piano style. They have a lot of presets here as well. Experimental pianos, process pianos, and standard pianos. Alright, so up next we have Analog Lab 3. And this one is basically a combination of synths, pianos, and organs, also some multi. But for this project, I really like the Juno pad, so I'm just going to be using that preset for the pad sound. Up next, we have the Whirly V2, and this is a neat little electronic piano. It already has some pedals here that you can adjust, like different effects. I just love the way all these instruments are laid out too. Just real simple to use. You can kind of understand what's going on just by looking at the pictures. So we'll take a look at that later. And the next one is the DX75. And this is another electronic piano style instrument. They have, bass sounds, brass sounds, keys, leads. You can make a whole beat with just this one instrument. And then we have a CMI 5. And this one's really interesting. It kind of looks like an ancient computer or something. So I don't really know how to use this, like just by looking at it, but it has standard presets here you can play around with. It's really neat though, because you can learn it as you go. I doubt anybody's using this keyboard here though. But you can learn as you go. Here's the filter, dampening, just play around with the knobs and take it from there. So alright, for this beat, I'm just going to be using MIDI files to save on time. So I have a MIDI pack folder here from my sound samples collection for future bass. So I'm going to open that up, and I'm going to use Function Loops Melodic Future Bass. So when I open up all the folders here, I'm going to go into their MIDI files. And the first thing I want to start with is the piano MIDI. So I'm going to click and drag that into the piano V2. And let's hear what that sounds like. Okay, so that crackling is happening because my CPU is spiking right here. As you can see, it goes up pretty high. So I'm going to bounce it every time I play so that doesn't happen. It only takes a few seconds, so let's bounce that. Alright, and now I'm going to go into that file, and I'm going to raise the volume by hitting Alt plus on my keyboard. Alright, that looks good enough. Now I'm going to switch the color to match the one above, so I can visually see that this is the same sound. I can also see it here because it's the same name as the sound that I bounced. So let's hear what that sounds like now. So here in the mixer, I was dropping the levels a little bit. I'm going to route that to the instrument bus channel, like it's there already. And for the instrument bus channel, I already have, here's the instrument bus channel. I have a room reverb, and the room reverb that I'm using, I'll pull it up here for you guys. It's the one that I use on all my projects, the SARM West Studios from Altiverb. All right, so let's move on to the next part here. Let me close this out. All right, so let's put on the pad sound now. So let's pick pad 1 and let's drag it into Analog Lab 3 and let's hit play. All right, I'm gonna go into the mixer because it wasn't playing, and the reason is all my instruments are off to save on CPU. So I'm gonna turn the next one on, which is Analog Lab 3. I'm gonna turn that on. Let's hear what it sounds like. It's a little loud. I'm gonna turn the levels down. Okay, so I got lucky. The CPU doesn't spike when it plays, so we'll leave it at that. And let's move on to the next one. So I'm gonna pick, let's see, let's put a bass in here. Let's try the bass sound. I'm gonna drag the MIDI in for the Mini V3. And let me turn it on from the mixer. And let's hear what it sounds like. Alright, so we've been getting pretty lucky with the presets because it all sounds good together. Not only that, but this MIDI is designed to work well with each other, so it's doing all the work for us. And let's do the lead sound now. Let's try the ARP. Let's put the ARP in the whirly, and let's give that a whirl. So let's see. Oh, that's right, I need to turn it on. It's kind of loud, so let's turn it down. Alright, we'll mess around with the presets later. I'm going to route that to the instrument bus channel to give it some reverb. Alright, another thing to note, this kit, it tells me here that it's supposed to be in 100 BPM, but I have it in 140. So it's going way faster than it should. Let's move on though. Let's go to the pluck sound, see what that sounds like in the DX7. And I'm gonna open up the mixer again, turn on the instrument. And let's hear what that sounds like. Alright, so now we ran into that CPU problem again. So let's start bouncing. So bounce DX7, Control B on the keyboard. It only takes a few seconds too, so you know, there's not much to complain about it, so it's not too bad. I think it's harder on FL Studio, to be honest, to just bounce things. So here I go, raising the volume just before it clips. And let's go back to the mixer and turn down the levels as we play. Oh wow, so it's still having issues. Let's go ahead and bounce the ARP, Control B. And after making these all WAV files, I'm going to show you some neat tricks to make this sound more unique. Here's the ARP sound. Let's bring it up. Awesome. So that should solve most of our CPU problems. Let's try again. Okay, so I think it might be the bass. Let's try bouncing the bass. Control B. What's frustrating about bouncing is if you want to make any changes, you have to remove that WAV file, go back to the MIDI, change the MIDI, and then bounce it again. But it's not too bad. So I'm going to raise the volume. And now that should solve our problems. Oh, but it's still spiking. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the mixer, and I'm going to start turning off the instruments because we don't need them anymore. The mini, the piano, the whirly, and let's do the DX7 as well. So Analog Lab is the only one we didn't bounce. Let's try again. Sorry about that. Let's bring down the levels. So all I'm doing is matching the levels, trying to get it to sound okay. I'm gonna try to do this as quickly as I can. Alright, cool, we got that going. So let's do, what do we have here? Pluck lead, chord line, bass break, arp. I don't know, let's try this pluck lead just to use this instrument. Who knows, maybe it'll sound good. Let's try. Back into the mixer, I'm going to turn on the CMI. And let's give it a whirl. Interesting. Interesting. I'm going to bounce it because we were having problems. Get into it, raise the volume, go back to the mixer and turn it down a little. Whoops, I turned down the wrong one. I'm gonna route these to the proper channels, so I'm gonna put that one in instrument, instrument for now. So they're all in the proper channels, so they have some reverb. Alright, great. Let's move on to the drums now. Spark. Let's open up Spark. And I'm going to show you guys how to quickly program some nice patterns without having to do much work. So first off, let's pick a drum set. So I'm going to go into the pop category, and I really like this 80s studio drum, so that's the one I'm going to be using. But they have a lot to choose from. So hold up a second, let me go to the mixer. Let me turn on the Spark instrument. And let me see, I bounced the CMI, so I'm going to turn that off. Let's go back into Spark. Here we are, let's see what it sounds like. So what's cool about these presets, basically these drum sets that they have in the Spark, is that they all sound good together. So once you sequence it, it's automatically going to sound good. So here in the bank pattern, I'm going to select the very first one, A1, and as you can see, the sequence changed. So there's going to be a lot of really fast hi-hats, some bass drum kicks, and snare drums, along with a perk sound. So let's hear what that sounds like. Wow, okay, so the CPU is spiking quite a bit, so that's not good. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go ahead and bounce that analog lab. Just do a save on that little bit of CPU that we need. And normally this wouldn't be a problem for me, it's just because I'm running OBS, the recording software. It takes up a lot of computer CPU, so let's program the correct level here. Since I know that's a pad sound, I'm just going to put it in the pads channel. Great. Let's get out of the mixer. Wait, hold up. Let's go back to the mixer. Let's turn off the analog lab. And hopefully now Spark will be running better. Let's try it again. There we go. Alright, so let's hear that in context. Okay, so the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to click here in the green. I'm going to drag that MIDI into the Spark section here. So as you can see, the MIDI's put in there. Basically, it's all done for me, the whole pattern. It's right there. So let's hear what that sounds like. So we got lucky. The very first sound is good. It works. So as you can see, there's endless possibilities here with Spark. Not endless, but you know, if you move around, you can take things off. See, like whatever you don't want to add, you can just remove. You know, make it unique, I guess. You can add some more sounds. Maybe you want to add a clap as well. Who knows? Let's hear what that sounds like. Alright, so since I made some changes, what I'm going to do is I'm going to delete the previous MIDI, and I'm going to do the same thing that I did last time by dragging the green MIDI button back into the pattern window. And because I want to switch up the next pattern, I'm going to move on to bank pattern number 2. Let's hear what that sounds like. Alright, interesting. Let's hear what that sounds like. So click and drag. And one thing, so that I don't lose track, I'm going to click on the first one and rename that pattern 1. I'm going to click on the next one and rename that pattern 2. And I'm doing this through the macro section. You guys can program your own names, and I just happen to put patterns 1 through 5. Alright, so let's cut this end here, and let's hear what that whole thing sounds like together. Alright, there we go. We have a beat. Really easy beat, just using Arturia 6 collection and Spark. Now, because I basically copied these MIDI files, you know, I don't want it to sound exactly like the creator made it. So I'm going to do some interesting things here to the wave files. I'm going to go ahead and transpose them all. So first thing I'm going to do is solo the piano. And I'm going to try to change the key of it by right-clicking and transposing it to something that sounds better. So I'm just going to bring it down 1. Okay, so wow, I'm just going to bring it down 1, and I think that sounds really nice. So now all I'm going to do is bring all of the other instruments down 1 as well. So I'm going to click on each wave file, transpose it down 1, try not to miss any, and I'll know immediately if I do because it'll be out of key. So whatever key that was, I'm just bringing it down 1 key on the keyboard. And I think I got them all, so that's it. Let's hear what that sounds like now. Alright guys, so as you can see there, I just completely changed the way that sounds by transposing it 1 down. So as you can see, there's tons of possibilities. I can change, basically this beat is done for me right here, this example. But if I was to take this project seriously, I would go back in. For example, I'd go back into the piano, right? And I would select a different preset because right now I'm using American Concert, but I'll go to something like Grand Solo, you know, and I'll go back here, I'll delete the wave file. I'll go back into the MIDI, and because I know that I transposed it, so hold on a second, let me unmute it by clicking 6. Alright, so because I transposed everything, all I have to do is select everything by Control A on my keyboard, and go to the pitch, and since it's at G4, I'm going to bring it down to F#4. And it's basically the same thing I did with the wave file. So let's hear what that sounds like. Oh, that's right, I turned off the instrument. So let's go back to the mix, let's turn it on. And it's crackling again, so I'm gonna have to bounce it, Control B. Alright, so it didn't work. I'm gonna go ahead and choose a different preset because this one's not working for some reason. So let's try a random one. Wow, and see, look, the picture changes too to represent the piano that you're playing with. So just for demonstration, I'm going to try it one more time here. So I'm going to remove these waves, unmute the MIDI. I'm going to bounce the MIDI one more time. Just give it a few seconds. And there we are. I'm gonna go back in, raise the volume, and let's hear what that sounds like. So that piano sounds nicer to me. So what I just did there, that process, I would go back in for each instrument and I would change the preset, you know, toy around with the settings, add some effects to it. That's the part that takes a long time. So the creation part here was pretty much done for me because I used a MIDI folder. But you know, I used all Arturia instruments and that's how I was able to get this really nice sound. So there you have it, guys. I hope you all learned something from this session, and thank you all for watching today, and I'll see you all in the next one. So take care.